Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Cebrián-Camisón, and I'm talking about the host feeding patterns of Aedes invasive species in Europe. There are 4 alien species of Aedes mosquitoes that are currently established in Europe. These are Aedes albopictus, Aedes aegypti, Aedes japonicus, and Aedes coreicus. And they are well known for their capacity to transmit locally circulating and exotic pathogens, such as dengue or Zika viruses. For these reasons, they are nowadays considered a major public health concern. Studying the blood feeding patterns of this species provides valuable information about the main vectors and reservoirs of the pathogens they transmit, and thus they may help to understand how the mosquitoes can affect the transmission of these pathogens. There are different methods to study these patterns, and one of the most used ones is the identification of the source from the blood meals from engorged mosquitoes. In this study, we conducted an extensive literature review on the host feeding patterns of these 4 Aedes invasive species, both in their native and invaded areas. We initially identified 276 studies, and from them we selected those which included information about at least one of the species focus of the study, and those which analyzed wild cow mosquitoes that were naturally fed. Thus, we included 46 studies in our analysis. There are different techniques that were used for the identification of the blood meals. And we combine information about from studies which had used different techniques to complete the database about the feeding patterns of the Aedes species. But given that some molecular methods also allow to identify the host to a species level, we use this additional information to create a complete list of all the known vertebrate hosts of this mosquito species. From the 46 studies, 37 have been conducted in invaded areas. And among the 46, we obtained information about more than 11,000 engorged mosquitoes. 37 vertebrate species were identified as hosts of at least one of the Aedes species. Taking into account both the native and invaded areas, we can see that the most common hosts were the mammals, and that from 40 to 90% of the total feedings corresponded to humans for all the species. The highest values corresponding to Aedes aegypti and Aedes coreicus. A low percentage of the feedings corresponded to birds, and curiously, Aedes albopictus was the only species that occasionally fed on ectotherms, including fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Restricting the analysis to the studies that were conducted in Europe, we can see that the patterns are mostly similar with slight differences, like the increase in the anthropophilic behavior of Aedes albopictus. Also, Aedes albopictus and Japonicus were the species that shown a broader host range. However, it is important to note that there are big differences in the sample size of the different mosquito species, and these restrict the conclusions that can be drawn. This review highlights the scarce information that is available about the host feeding patterns of these species in Europe. For some species, it can be due to their limited distribution on the continent. However, Aedes albopictus is already established in more than in 15 European countries, but their feeding patterns have only been studied in 3 of them. Also, there is limited information regarding some species, especially Aedes coreicus, with only 50 individuals analyzed. Another aspect that can limit our study is the origin of the mosquitoes analyzed. Most of the studies included in the analysis were conducted in urban areas, and this may have led to an overestimation of the anthropophilic behavior of the mosquito species. Lastly, it is important to remark that these results show feeding patterns, but not preferences, because the studies included did not take into account information about the abundances of the available host. With all this information, 2 main conclusions can be drawn. First of all, is that given the anthropophilic behavior and their vectorial capacity, Aedes invasive mosquitoes can play a key role on the epidemiology of pathogens like dengue, Zika, or chikungunya viruses. And second of all, is that there is a clear knowledge gap regarding the host feeding patterns of these mosquitoes in Europe, and despite the importance of this information to understand the risk of transmission of mosquito-borne pathogens. Thank you all for attending, and INCONS for the invitation. Here is the original reference of the study and some different ways of contacting me, just in case someone needs further information. Thank you.